They've finally done it. They've made the game that The Division should have been all along. Not to take away from what it is as a looter shooter, but the new survival mode is a fresh take and frankly, I think a better experience of a game than any of The Division was from the get-go. You know, if you asked me before what my favorite time with The Division was, I would have said all the way back in the beta, where everyone was fresh and the Dark Zone was new and interesting. But I think over time we started to find the cracks in the gameplay and the structure, and some of the issues with the looter shooter nature of it, mainly people getting much better gear than those around them and absolutely dominating them. The new survival mode strips all of that gear away, it strips your levels, it strips your skills, it strips everything, and has everyone play in a fresh experience, a sort of micro version of the game. So let's talk about what survival is. Well, as I mentioned, it's a fresh start. Everyone queues into a match with a brand new character, basic gear, just a pistol, and 0 skills. It's basically like you're starting a new character for this mini mode. The mode holds up to a maximum of 24 players at the moment and just dumps you at a random safe house in New York. At this time, there's a raging blizzard going on outside, and survival elements have been implemented into the game. Some of the elements that I believe were originally supposed to be in the base game that were probably stripped. So you begin in this safe house and you're able to make some basic clothing to help fend off the weather, but it's not good enough. The weather outside is so frightful it's almost Christmas, okay? That your temperature plummets the second you step out of the house. This makes you focus on trying to go to sources of heat every few minutes until you have acquired enough clothing to stay warm. On top of being freezing and having to get heat sources and find new materials to make clothing or find clothing, you also have to worry about hunger and thirst and this infection that you have that is a tick down timer until you literally die if it completes. It starts at an hour, and if it goes down to 0, you're done. So you're fighting off cold, you're fighting off thirst and hunger, and you're fighting off an infection, and every other player. Yes, this is primarily the way I've played it, a PvP game mode. There are 2 options, PvP and PvE, but frankly, I think if you play the PvE version of survival, you're doing yourself a disservice, because 90% of the enjoyment of this mode comes from the constant threat of other players. That's right, it's not just like the Dark Zone. The entire map, any person you come across of the 24 total who are queued into your match is a potential enemy. They can shoot you on sight. They can shoot you in the back while you're looting a corpse if you're not paying attention. It's a head trip, man. It's nuts. Constant threat of players, a raging storm, thirst and hunger, infection that's ticking down to your death after 1 hour has elapsed. To stave all of this off, you're going throughout the world, you're finding materials in crates and boxes, you're killing NPCs that can drop clothing, that can drop gear, that can drop materials for you to make gear. And that's another aspect of this mode, is that crafting is a part of it. As you progress through the game, closer and closer towards the Dark Zone, you will be finding better crafting stations to make better gear, using better materials that you found all along the way. Every moment of this is absolutely intense. Not only do we have the threat of other players and all these survival elements, but the NPCs are pretty badass as well. Because again, you could have played for thousands of hours the base game of Division, but none of that stuff matters when you jump into survival. It is a fresh start for everybody. So NPCs will kick your ass. Taking cover becomes absolutely vital. There's no more running and gunning in this mode. But how do you complete the match? What is the game mode? What's the objective? Well, it is a King of the Hill mode. It is a survival mode. You're trying to outlast the other players and survive your engagements with the NPCs. Now, you could group up with other people, but it's been my experience most people are shooting first and asking questions later. The ultimate goal, though, is to go from outside of the Dark Zone where you originally spawn, pick up all your materials and make your clothing and your weapons and everything that you need, and then also get a safety mask to finally make your way into the Dark Zone. Once you're in there, the goal is to find this antiviral and then take some loot caches that you acquire in the Dark Zone and extract. The first person to extract gets a hefty reward, and if you're the last player surviving, the better you do, basically, the better your reward. And when you finally do extract and you've made it this far, you then face a hunter, which is a very agile, fast-moving, and having access to multiple abilities and almost a consistent heal NPC. They're very strong and very tough to deal with. So this mode has, again, been absolutely amazing. I finally have a reason, honestly, to give a crap about The Division. It is a far cry from the base game, which is a grinding looter shooter where you're constantly trying to acquire better gear, you make your character min-maxed with the better stat rolls and all of this stuff, and you can do this over the course of hundreds and thousands of hours. But this micro experience of survival mode makes me not care about any of that. I just want to keep running this because it makes you feel, because it's intense. The first 15 to 20 minutes are an absolute shit show. It's crazy. Shots are popping off everywhere, but everyone starts with pistols, so it's these ridiculous fights. It's a really good time. That's not to say that it's perfect. I'm not just coming at you with the hype train trying to run you over and convince you that this is a good thing, though. I think there are a few key points that they could improve on that I believe would take this to the next level and really get people interested in coming back to The Division. Not necessarily for the base game that they left because they didn't want to do the loot grind anymore, but for this new mode that's a different, fresh experience and, in my opinion, a better experience. So the first thing I think they can do is add more players. They are taking the entirety of the game map, everything outside of the Dark Zone and the Dark Zone included, and they're dropping 24 players into there to fight it to the death and try to make it an extract. But 24 doesn't feel like enough. It is certainly the case within those first 10 to 20 minutes that you're coming across players on a regular basis, but after that, it's few and far between. As the numbers dwindle down to 15 and 10 players left and everyone's spread out amongst this humongous map, it becomes less likely that you'll come across someone. And that's actually the opposite of what I would hope. I want things to get more intense, more engaging, more heart-pounding as the match goes on, but that's not the case. The only real threat is NPCs in the Dark Zone because by that point there are so few players left. In my experience, anywhere between 5 and 10. And if they're coming in at different entry points of the Dark Zone, they may never see each other. So I'd like a higher player count so that more people make it to the Dark Zone, so the Dark Zone is more intense. Oddly enough too, the Dark Zone is also the warmest part of the map, meaning that all the cold weather gear that you've acquired up until entering the Dark Zone isn't as necessary because it's colder outside of the Dark Zone. Why is the Dark Zone a easier place to be when it comes to the survival elements? Obviously the NPCs are harder and more condensed, but the survival elements should be more intense as well. It is crazy to me that you can walk in the Dark Zone and it's like, oh, this isn't as bad. It's almost like a sigh of relief because it's warmer than it is outside. That's crazy. A second thing that I'd like to see them focus on is less crafting. And this is by far my favorite thing that The Division has ever done. But the most engaging part of that is the moving around the world, the scavenging, the engaging in NPCs and worrying about players, finding players while they're engaging NPCs and fighting them. The most boring part of it is the crafting. Sometimes you'll have to spend 5 to 10 minutes at a crafting station, breaking down all the excess gear that you had, then combining all of those materials, then making yourself new thermal gear, new armor, new weapons, attachments, and mods. That's nuts. It can take so much time away from the fun. I'm not saying get rid of crafting altogether. I think it's still important. There should be crafting of the essentials like the mask and health kits and skills, because yes, you can craft skills from the materials that you get, but I don't think you should be able to craft all of these attachments and these mods and frankly even armor. Maybe let us craft weapons and the essentials, but armor, mods, and attachments, it just takes up so much damn time, and that time is not the fun part of the survival mode. Let us get all of that extra stuff just from playing, just from fighting NPCs or looting caches within the world. And the final thing that I'd like them to do is make this a goddamn free update. I'm not telling them to not charge for new updates, but the survival mode itself, I think that should be separate and included in the base game. Absolutely. Charge for whatever else you added in the recent update. I don't even know. I don't even care. I really think they just missed the boat by putting this behind a $15 paywall, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think it should be free. I think they would see a tremendous influx of players, and maybe that influx also gets them to buy the other DLC. I'm not looking to grind endgame dungeons or do the Dark Zone. I just want to do survival over and over and over again. And that's exactly why I wanted to make this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. All right, everybody, that does it for me here today. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hope you have a good afternoon, and until next time, I'll see you later.